Good day, everyone. My name is Adrian Alexander. I'm the Advocacy and Movement Building Country Manager for Free the Slaves, and I'm based in Trinidad and Tobago. And we're used to seeing Brian or Marta, but I'm sitting in for a very special episode of Conversations on Modern Slavery. With me today are two amazing people that I've met here in the Caribbean. One is Diahann Gordon Harrison from Jamaica, and the other is Cherise Francis from Barbados, currently blessing the United Kingdom with her presence and her expertise. All right. But I know some of our viewers have seen Diahann on our podcast before, as she was a guest, I think it was last year, Diahann, when we did the recording in the Global Forum. So I'll start with you, Cherise, just a brief introduction of who you are and how did you get involved in this movement to combat modern slavery, and then I'll pivot to Diahann.
Sure. So thank you, Adrian, so much for having me. My name is Cherise. I'm a legal professional, educator, consultant. I do most of my work on trafficking and anti-trafficking in the English-speaking Caribbean, the Anglophone Caribbean, but the wider developing world as well. I think for me, coming to counter-trafficking or anti-trafficking work was a happy accident, or fate, I would call it. So I finished my master's in human rights and criminal justice, and as a Caribbean person wanting to come home, I was like, okay, what do I do? How do I get a job involved in human rights? And I literally Googled human rights jobs in the Caribbean. And one of the things that came up was a job with the Human Trafficking Institute, which is a US NGO, but that does work in the Caribbean. And they were looking for somebody to work in the courts in Belize who had a legal background, but on anti-trafficking. And I thought to myself, okay, trafficking, not really an issue I'd considered before, but it is a human rights issue. So what do I have to lose? Applied for the job, got the job, went to Belize, was working there in the courts, and there were a lot of questions that came up about trafficking in the Caribbean that I wasn't able to answer. My judge couldn't answer. We couldn't find answers for. So I decided, well, I'm going to have to write the answers to these questions. That led me to do a PhD that's all on trafficking and anti-trafficking in the Caribbean, and to get involved with people like you and Diahann and now the coalition. So happy accident on my part.
That's a great story, Cherise. Really, there's so many ways in which people stumble into it. Kind of something similar to myself. It was literally stumbling into this, but this isn't. Yeah, but Diahann, tell us about you. How did you get involved in counter-trafficking? Because you wear so many hats in Jamaica and around the world.
Yes, so, it's so good to be here with you, Adrian, and of course, Cherise, and particularly because I think my response will just round out the trio. So again, just kind of stumbled into human trafficking. So of course, it was always an area that I was very intrigued by. At the time when I think I became very aware of human trafficking, I was still a practicing prosecutor at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions in Jamaica. And certainly we had to be exposed now to this new offense again. I mean, Jamaica was getting its anti-trafficking laws. We were trying to set up a task force, and we were putting the nuts and bolts in place for an anti-trafficking framework that was robust and would really have Jamaica comply with the Palermo Protocol. And so I had that very formal introduction, but it was so intriguing because of the different considerations now that we were being called upon as prosecutors and persons who were, very critical within the architecture of our courts to look at the why. So yes, somebody committed an immigration offense, but you can't prosecute them because of the psychological baggage that they're carrying, being a victim of trauma. Under a trafficking experience. So that piqued the interest. And then fast forward now to transitioning from the office of the DPP and becoming the children's advocate. I remember one year Jamaica teetered very dangerously to going to perhaps tier 3. We were on the tier 2 watch list. And our government had to do something that was very significant to ensure that we demonstrated our seriousness in this whole anti-trafficking fight. And I was summoned to a meeting of the Security Council, and I was kind of just advised that this was going to happen. We were thinking of a national rapporteur. We looked at your work and we looked at your qualifications, and we looked at the best fit, and you are the best fit. So I thought it was something that we discussed, but no, it was an announcement that apparently I was being brought in at the back end, so literally stumbled into it. But because of the intrigue that certainly had captivated me years before, and then the overlap between human trafficking and the vulnerability issues that children are exposed to, themselves being a good chunk of the trafficking victims in Jamaica, it really was a very good fit and a very natural kind of progression for me.
Oh, that's great. I love how people come into this. There's so many different stories, so many different angles, right? And everybody just seems to have found their way into connecting here in our beautiful Caribbean region. So for those who aren't aware, I had the pleasure of first meeting Diahann and Cherise in 2023. And that was when we were formulating was it late 2022? I think it was late 2022.
It was 2022. Yeah.
Yes. And I was in preparation for the very first standalone and in-person Freedom from Slavery Caribbean Regional Forum. So that was held in Trinidad and Tobago in 2023 in February. I didn't meet Cherise in person then. I didn't have that pleasure as she suffered a recent bereavement. But they helped plan that forum, which was phenomenal. And continuing in terms of like collaborating, we had the pleasure of having the 2024 forum in awesome Jamaica. And Diahann, you were the co-host with ONRTIF, the Office of the National Rapporteur on Trafficking in Persons. And that was such an amazing forum. Honestly, I didn't think that the 2023 forum could be topped because we had such awesome feedback, right? From people of all different ranks, people in, so many different sectors. They found something that they could relate to. And again, that was because of the tremendous work that you and the other planning committee members did in structuring an amazing, amazing agenda. And in 2024, everyone was blown away. It was like, wow. So in May of 2024, we went to Kingston, hosted by Diahann and her lovely team. And it was just a tremendous, tremendous experience, Diahann. I think the way we ended is kind of like why we're here today. Diahann led us in a rendition of Bob Marley's One Love. Singing expertise just shining through. So you're not just a legal luminary, you're also an amazing singer. But
I thought I had forgotten that bit. I did not.
We did not forget.
That's the power of Free the Slaves, I would say, Adrian, because I too thought that Trinidad was phenomenal. And I think each of the regional forums kind of have their own magic, So for me, Trinidad has lasting memories. And I thought there were good synergies that were developed. The discussions were very relatable. And it really, I think, awakened that sense of awareness throughout the region and a longing for the connection. And so Jamaica just kind of built on that. So I think, this is the power of Free the Slaves.
And the power of collaboration and connection, Yes. I think one of the themes that ran through from 2023 to 2024 was there are gaps, and one of the key gaps that people kept bringing up during the discussions in 2023 is we don't network enough, we don't talk enough. This sector doesn't talk to that sector. And even though the theme for 2024's forum was about culture, I think it was during the planning discussion, Cherise, you mentioned that one aspect of our Caribbean culture that we need to get rid of is working in silos.
Definitely. I think, we're such a communicative people and we reach out to each other so much. We do that on a social level. And realistically, so many professional decisions are made while people are liming at a bar or while people are meeting people on the street. But somehow when it transitions to very serious issues, we don't carry across that same openness. We really tend to work in silos. A lot of that, I think, stems from the limited funding. We're all competing for the same funding from the same sources. So, of course, you want your organization or your group to be able to benefit from that. But I think our power really is in that connection. It really is in that spirit of openness and community. That's what's gotten the Caribbean thus far in all aspects. Sure. So I think it's something that we also have to do in this counter-trafficking work as well.
Yeah, so true. And it was great that everyone was able to agree. So we worked together for the 2023 forum, which was amazing, the 2024 forum, which was super amazing. Let's continue working together and fill this gap, right? And that's kind of like how the Caribbean Coalition Against Trafficking in Persons was born and virtually launched on July 31st. So it's kind of like smack between the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons and Emancipation Day. And it really highlighted just that, the ability to network and collaborate across cultures, across boundaries, across sectors, and really see just how beautiful things can work out. So, I mean, for each of you, what value do you think such a coalition will bring to counter trafficking in our region at a regional level?
Do you want to go first, Cherise?
Sure, that's fine. So for me, I think, again, the value is about the people. I know so many of us come to anti-trafficking in different ways. So for Diahann, it's her day job. She's doing a lot of programming. She's doing a lot of putting together resources. And I mean resources that I was looking to when I was working in Belize. So when I was working in the courts in Belize, Belize didn't have jury directions, for example, on trafficking. And I went to the UNRTIP website and I found Jamaica's resources, their bench book. I found some of the publications from Diahann's office. And that was what helped my judge to be able to make some of the decisions that we were making at that time. I come to it from a research perspective, having been in the field and still to some extent being in the field, but doing interviews and working with different stakeholders and that kind of thing. And I think the coalition allows us to bring all these people together in a way that barriers are broken down and nobody is above anybody else. Because oftentimes, if we're in a conference setting, the academic people see that as their space. If we're running a project, if the people working on the ground, they think that's their space. But the coalition allows us all to work together in a way that's not hierarchical, in a way that we work with brainstorming, we really collaborate, and it's really a unity of everybody's perspective as to what we produce and what we bring together. And I think that is the value, because the connections that each of us have on the coalition, the perspectives that we have, make sure that we're able to have this holistic view that we like to talk about. And I think that is the value of it for me. It's the people.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. If I could just follow on from that, Adrian and Cherise. So for me, I think the coalition really stands back in the middle of helping us to connect. That's the first thing, because we have so many similarities as countries throughout the Caribbean region, but we tend to focus on the differences a lot. So this is my system. This is your system. This is how we do it over here. And I think sometimes because we're seen as a region externally, we have would-be traffickers who even target the region, and we're not able to learn from each other's experiences. We're not able to exchange best practice, and we're not interconnected in terms of responding to the needs of victims. And I think that makes our Caribbean anti-trafficking framework a little bit splintered, and it gives the traffickers an advantage over those who are working in the field to prevent human trafficking as a region. And so for me, the existence of the coalition finally creates a space where we can readily reach out to persons in other sister jurisdictions. And it also gives access to the thought process from different perspectives in the same space, around the same table. And as Cherise says, not in a hierarchical way, but a round table where each person's perspective has value and really brings a different spin to the problem. And then that broadens our collective response and our collective understanding of the scope and nature of the problem. So for me, it was long in coming, and it's something that I'm very excited about in terms of it being here, because it helps to bridge the divide between Leeward and Windward and Greater Antilles and Lesser and Big and Small and all of these things that we think sometimes are such great differences, without, recognizing that we are looking at differences internally, but externally, traffickers see migratory people from the Caribbean, global issues in terms of socioeconomic strata and so on. So this is an area where we can get and poach our victims from. And when we're so concerned with the individualities, we miss that and then compromise our region. So I think it really creates that avenue through which to have this kind of awareness and easy collaboration.
Awesome. That's well said, ladies. Well said. I remember someone at the launch, this is Uguna from the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative. And one word she said really touched my heart. She said, this represents hope. Yes. Hope for survivors of trafficking, because it means that there will be this unified cross-border, cross-sector application to not only prevention, but also protection and restoration, and really giving people hope that it's not the same old, this is a much more unified strategy that will now be rolled out to address trafficking and underlying causes of trafficking, right? At a regional level. So for me, I love the word hope. It's just one of my buzzwords. And I think that's what I see in the coalition. Tremendous expertise, all coming together, as you said, a round table, not hierarchical, and everybody looking forward to doing the same thing, to see a better Caribbean for all of us. Yeah. But I know we all individual stories, but individual journey. So in terms of like the journey towards the launch of the coalition, what was your journey like, Cherise?
I think for me, the journey was, again, it was just a continuation of the forum. And I really did feel like it was just planning another forum, but a permanent forum that's going to be online, because it was a similar team and everybody bringing, again, those various perspectives, but also being willing to compromise on dates and times and meetings and everything else that's going on, right? And I think the journey towards seeing the launch of the coalition, for me, one of the most special moments was being able to see those projects flesh out. So being able to see where the committees actually could sit and how we could integrate research with the stakeholder mapping, and being also able to see everybody tap into their passion projects, because like I said, all of us come to counter trafficking in a different way. So let me give you an example for me. So I chair the committee, and the project that I work most on would be the stakeholder mapping. And this is something that I've been thinking about even through my PhD thesis. I literally created a map of what the stakeholders in the Caribbean kind of look like in my mind. And I've always seen it as something that we need to help to break down those silos. But the coalition has provided an avenue, and working with others and hearing others confirm that, yes, this is something we think we need, this is something that would be valuable. Being able to see that project be fleshed out, or being able to see it as a part of something, has given me more drive, more spirit, more hope to actually build that out and have that be working and see what it can contribute to the region, so that no longer are we seeing it as it's government or not government. Because again, that's one of the biggest silos that we see in counter trafficking work in the Caribbean. And the stakeholder mapping allows us to break that down and see how everybody connects, where everybody overlaps. And that is one of the only things that we can see the true gaps, the true spaces that we can all fill together. So that's one of the things that's been most special for me on this journey, and being able to work with everybody on that and also share why that's important, or why I think it's important, has been really, really reaffirming.
Thank you for sharing. Diahann, what was your journey like?
Yeah, so I think it's just a continuation. There's this very popular approach to many things, that it's not the end goal, it's not the destination, it's about the journey. And for me, it just feels like a natural evolution from both forums. The one in Trinidad, we spoke about wanting to do something. We spoke about being driven, but we didn't really, I think, finalize on what that would look like. Again, it came up, as you well know, Adrian. I mean, you were perhaps one of the chief architects of that discussion, again, at the Jamaican Forum. And I think the consensus was that we need to ride the momentum. And so that journey for me has been one of a continuing ride, journeying towards greater collaboration and really journeying towards refining how we respond as a Caribbean to anti-trafficking progress, anti-trafficking threats. And so for me, it really just feels like the work is continuing, and this is another avenue through which to see how best we can refine our tools and really just try to seek to get it as best as possible as a region.
So true, so true. And as Cherise mentioned, a project that she'll be leading and which has been on her heart for a number of years to get done. I know similarly with you, Diahann, you are the project lead for the Regional Resource Hub. Tell us a little bit about that.
All right. So again, the Regional Resource Hub, to me, it's mushrooming from what already has been put in place as a foundation and as an example of how a virtual resource library can be of great benefit. So the Office of the National Rapporteur on Trafficking in Persons, which I lead as Jamaica's National Rapporteur on Trafficking, launched an online resource library that really is, let's say, a one-stop shop, if you will, for research articles, news pieces, things from academia, legislation, submissions to journals, just anything at all that deals with human trafficking. And what we thought when this resource library came about was that we wanted to create a space that was resident within Jamaica that could be of great benefit to persons who wanted information on human trafficking. So it really was to be that credible sounding board or reference point that persons, whatever their interest, could go in and, really get access to some good information that was reliable, had been fact-checked, and was in fact exposing them to a different area within the human trafficking world. And so I think we have achieved that, because when we look at the metrics, we see that we have had persons visit not only from Jamaica, but from all throughout the Caribbean region, and all the regions of the world, in fact, have been utilizing and accessing the resource library. And so that created, I think, the kernel for further discussion as to how we could expand the online resource library into a regional resource hub for all things trafficking that would feature work from persons, perhaps those persons who are members of the coalition or not, who have an interest in anti-trafficking work, in building out resources that are genuinely Caribbean or Caribbean-led, so that our people have broader access to what it is that we are putting out there as reliable information that will not only serve their own purpose, for research and so on, but will help build awareness of members of the public about what human trafficking looks like, what scale is it on within the Caribbean, and perhaps more importantly, how we can empower persons not to remain in a space of victimhood, but to transition to survivorship. And for those persons who are not victims, but are observing certain things, the information can empower them as to different ways that they can positively disrupt a potentially, harmful situation.
That's so true, Diahann. And of course, Cherise mentioned earlier that she was able to access the resource directory, and it was really helpful for her and the judge with whom she was working in Belize. So I really see this as a continuation of that project that you started. And I know that you're passionate about it. So you're definitely the only person to be considered to lead that particular project. But in addition to those two projects, we have three others under the coalition. Perhaps the largest one, when you think about the capacity to bring it to fruition, would be the Regional Prevention Action Plan. How can we ensure that voices and inputs from across the region can play a role in developing an action plan that is not just national in nature, but encompasses the fact that we are migrating all the time within the region, and also dealing with migrants coming into the region and dealing with the cultural and other factors that play a key role in terms of demand for trafficked persons for certain types of services. So Charmaine Gandhi Andrews is leading that particular project. And we have an amazing countrywoman of yours, Diahann, Sandra Christie Brown, who is leading another project on Speakers Bureau, how to develop a Speakers Bureau for those, whether they're survivors or academics or other professionals in this anti-trafficking fight from our region, so that we ensure there's a certain standard that is maintained, but also in terms of how do outside organizations engage with speakers so that there is no exploitation, which we've seen, unfortunately, develop in some parts of the world, especially where the speakers are survivors. And the fifth project is counter-trafficking conferences, and how do we bring those to pass? Because yes, we do have the framework for the Freedom from Slavery Regional Forum, but that's not on an annual basis necessarily. So how can we, again, ensure we have the greatest number of voices taking part through some virtual conferences that can take place in between the regional forums? So I think that's one avenue as well. And what do you guys think about the committees? Because in addition to the projects, we have the 5 standing committees. Cherise, you and Jason, Dr. Jason Haynes, lead the one on research, but we use the acronym SMART. So it's Survivor, Membership, Advocacy, Research, and Training. So it's awesome to have Cherise, one of the co-chairs of the Research Committee, and then one of the co-chairs of the Training Committee here with us today, because essentially we want to make sure that whatever proposals and even our advocacy is research-driven, and our training is in fact research-driven. So we need to know, what do people need in terms of building their capacity and enhancing their work to combat trafficking, whether any of the 4 Ps, right? And then how can Diahann and Charmaine, as co-chairs of the training committee, help to identify those persons who would be experts to deliver that training, not just for the members of the coalition, but also for stakeholders at a regional level. I think it looks good right now. Yeah, it looks.
Things are looking good, yes.
Yes.
We can see Adrian looking very happy.
I am, because even as you guys spoke about things that had been on your hearts for years, several years ago, it occurred to me that we need this type of collaboration at this level. So just getting those confirmations over the last year and a half or so, it really made my heart glad. And to see it materialize in July, and the beautiful thing is, it's not just a question of starting something and then seeing it fall by the wayside. That's like infanticide, right? If you give birth to a child and don't feed it, don't maintain the child, you get locked up for that. So that's not what we're about. We're about nurturing and caring for our baby, and making sure he or she grows into adulthood and makes contributions to our region. So I love the commitment that I'm seeing from the leadership committee. We have a little secret that will probably be divulged in January concerning the leadership committee, but I think we have a wonderful team, and the representation, I think, is amazing. So we have Barbados, Cherise, we have Guyana, we have Trinidad and Tobago, we have St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we have Jamaica, we have St. Lucia, and we even have Venezuela, right? As a country that is a country of origin for many trafficked persons in the Southern Caribbean. So the cosmopolitan nature, I think, is amazing. And at the same time, getting that type of commitment where people are working in the different sectors, they have their own networks, and all of those things can feed into a coalition. I think that's really remarkable.
No, but not really more.
And I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you and the other members of the committee. And I trust that on Conversations to Modern Slavery, we'll be able to give some updates every now and again to share the progress of the coalition and some of the amazing projects and activities that will be starting in the near future. So any final words, ladies?
Well, just to say thank you to you, Adrian, because you really are the glue that holds us all together, keep us all accountable, And I think as much as for all of us, this is so much more of your baby as well. You've been there with us for every step of the way. So to say thank you to you for having us and for keeping us continuing these conversations and working together as a team. It really is an incredible team, an incredible project, and I'm so happy and proud to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cherise.
And yeah, I so echo those sentiments, Adrian. You have been the consistent force. And, my hope is that you'll be encouraged to continue. As you expressed, and as I think myself and Cherise agree, we are in a good place. It feels like things are happening. It feels like the locomotion is taking us in the right direction. And I hope that gives you hope to continue being the glue. And certainly, I think that as members of the leadership committee, we, double our resolve and our commitment to the process and look forward to just exciting times in terms of solid achievements, growth, and continuing to build on the synergies that I think are gelling very nicely. So looking forward to all of that and encouraging those who are watching and who are aware of the work to continue watching this space for phenomenal things to happen in the anti-trafficking world.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, Diahann, Cherise, and all of the other members of the leadership committee, and just the amazing work that you're doing. And thanks to those who are encouraging us, keeping us in prayer, those who have pledged their support, and those new organizations and individuals who have been joining the coalition since we had our launch. So our numbers continue to grow, and look forward to some amazing things in the new year. Yeah. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us here on Conversations on Modern Slavery. And I will see you guys soon.
Thank you so much. See you soon.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.